just doesn't work, you know. But anyway, it's okay. Thanks for asking.
Well, it's something we always need to do.
I'm very afraid I'm going to knock it over.
Yep.
So-
No worries. I have a lot of these. I don't
Doing
need.
good. You're a good man. You actually took a day off for this. I love it.
Do it. Well, you
Keep eating back there.
You know.
Everything is here.
You should take one of the packets that are over
So,
there. That's where yeah, but there's also the discounts.
Do you want one of these? Do you have one of these?
Yeah, I got one right here. Thank you.
No. It was saying hi.
Listening, budget preliminary.
play cards.
I had a couple extras.
I understood.
Good. Yeah. Good. Good. It's just round one.
Kick everybody's butt up there.
I just have great respect for you now.
Okay.
Okay. Hey, folks.
I don't have another pen.
Mike's on.
Yeah.
I didn't bring my computer. I thought it was more like
Yeah.
Good morning, everyone. Thank you all for being here. I'd like to call the Joint Budget Subcommittee listening session to order. And please pause for a moment of silence. Please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Well, welcome everybody, and thank you for coming out on a little chilly morning. Hopefully the afternoon gets warmed up a little bit. But today, this is the fourth of 6 listening sessions that the Joint Budget Subcommittee is having across the community. We had one at the Elks. We had one in the evening here at the Senior Center. And we have this one. We have 2 more. The last 2, Saturday, we have one from Council Chambers that will be a Zoom one. That's the only one that you'll be able to Zoom into and speak. The rest are all on TV, on Franklin Cable's cable access channels and YouTube channels. But these listening sessions, just so everybody understands what the Joint Budget Subcommittee is made up of. And it's made up of the budget subcommittees of the 3 financial entities of the community, meaning the Finance Committee, the School Committee, and the Town Council. So you have subcommittees from those 3 bodies that make up the Joint Budget Subcommittee. We started this process back September 11th, I believe, when we started this. And we found that the first few listening sessions have gone really well, giving the community an opportunity to ask questions and to hear how we build a budget, why we build it like we do, and why we're in the situation that we're currently in, which is a structural deficit we have as we move into 26. And again, the structural deficit number that you'll hear this morning is based upon providing the current level of services that you have. In other words, the current level of service from police, from fire, the library, the senior center, DPW, schools, all of the entities within the community, the current level of services that you've been accustomed to and you've had this past year. We built the budget based on providing that level of service. And I know Jamie and Lucas will get into that a little deeper. So we'll get started. What will happen is our town administrator, Jamie Helen, will give a brief update. Then Superintendent of Schools, Lucas Jaguar, will give a brief update. And then we're going to open it up to the community, open it up to you to ask your questions, express your concerns. We need to hear those. So, and we hopefully will be able to answer most, if not all, of your questions. So with that, I'll turn it over to our town administrator, Jamie Helen.
Great. Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and welcome everybody. It's great to see a packed house this morning, and just want to thank the Senior Center staff for their incredible work. I want to thank them for hosting the refreshments, and thanks for our volunteers for being here today, and just appreciate everybody's commitment to one of the best senior centers in the state of Massachusetts. So just quickly, if folks came in the back door or the side doors, there are some documents over here on this table. I will say that usually around the first week of March, this is no accident for those of you who pay attention to the budget before, those of you on this committee, you know usually the first week of March, I give a preliminary budget update for the upcoming fiscal year. So this is right on par with where we're normally at. I would also mention that citizen discounts and exemptions, there's a flyer over here. Many people ask us all the time, how do we provide benefits to those in the community to try to offset some of the costs of living in town. There's a whole 4-page sheet here. It's also online. We post it usually pretty frequently. I would note in here that the fees schedule this year was updated by the town council earlier this year. And there's a program in there called the Community Assistance Program. They did increase the eligible benefit of rebate for water, sewer, trash, and stormwater. They upped that from 20% rebate to 50% rebate this year. So you can certainly call the DPW staff and find out if you're eligible. Send this to your family, friends, your neighbors, other people in the community to make sure they're aware of the many opportunities in this document for you to save off your property tax bills or your other costs within the community. So just want to make a plug for that. Something a little different today because it's a packed house. Sarah, I believe we have some microphones at some point, so when we get to the question and answer portion, just raise your hand and one of the staff will come seek you out, and we'll let you sit in your own chair and provide the microphones there. Tomorrow night, what you're hearing today and what's in the memo that I've placed over here on the, it's also online, but it's over here on the table. This is an updated budget model. I'll be presenting this tomorrow night at the town council meeting as well, so you're getting kind of a preview to tomorrow night's presentation. I will be going through more in depth tomorrow night, some of the details, but for today, I'm going to try to reserve my comments to a few moments just to give you the chance to ask questions. Also, just for those of you who are new to the budget process, usually around the first week of March, I do a preliminary budget update to the town council, which is tomorrow night. Because we're doing listening sessions, you'll obviously hear some of this today. I will also be outlining this on Saturday as well at the municipal building at 10 a.m. They'll be virtual, also in person. I'll be doing the same outline next week when we do the listening session at the high school March 12th as well. So you're going to hear plenty of these updates throughout the next couple weeks. And I do technically file officially by the town charter requirements. I do file the town budget around April 18th. So you can put that into your calendars as well. That's when the official filing of the town administrator budget will go out. And lastly, before I dive into the details, really the next couple weeks is an opportunity for all of you and those of you watching at home to provide the officials up here on this table with what your thoughts and feelings are about the town budget, the deficit, and also any ideas you may have that we can try to address. So I put this memo that is over on the table here out yesterday. I'm not going to go through every single item just because it would really it would take away and be a little bit boring. But ultimately, I want to kind of jump right to page 4 on this. Really, what I've tried to do in this model is present Model A and Model B, 2 choices. And choice A is something that people are fairly familiar with. We know that we've had a structural deficit for well over a couple years. Many people may remember when I took over as town administrator in 2019, there were articles, I did a series in the Metro West Daily News about the structural nature of the deficits in Franklin that have been here for really probably 20 plus years. And so we're kind of at a point of no return relative to the budget. So as people can see in here, the budget deficit has been increased slightly to $3.862 million. The main reason, I'm going to go through all of these pieces here, but all of the assumptions are laid out right in this memo. And again, we'll go through this tomorrow night at the town council meeting. We've made some adjustments, which is very typical of property and casualty insurance for the town, for our facilities, workers' comp. By this point in the first week of March, usually that's when I start getting real numbers on healthcare, employee healthcare. The pension board officially votes on what the assessment will be. Up until really February or March of each year, and really when we get local aid from the governor at the end of January, it's very, very challenging to put together a real budget model until we really have better information and better facts from other entities. All of this model bakes in local aid from the governor and all the assessments. This also includes the official vote from the school committee, I believe it was on February 11th, of what their budget recommendation was. This also includes a few tweaks to some of the other numbers based on information on employee health care. And one of the other issues that is thrown into this model is an assumed borrowing for the new ladder truck for the fire department, which was authorized 3 years ago. As many people might want to take a look at the February 5th budget or presentation on ALS and BLS rates from the fire department. Take a look at that presentation. This was a truck that was ordered 3 years ago. It was right on schedule. Now we have to go out and actually pay back that debt on that. So that is also built into this model as well. We also have updated healthcare numbers, not just for the employee contribution, but also the retired teacher GIC health insurance. The GIC is the group insurance commission at the state. Our retired teachers get their health care from that. The GIC just put out their rates last week. So as you can see, the GIC just put out their rates last week, and until they put out their rates and their formal numbers, it's hard for me to build into the budget model exactly what those are. There's a few other tweaks in here on workers' comp and some other smaller line items, but all in all, budget model A, you're looking at a $3.862 million budget deficit, and I'm happy to answer any questions from folks as the meeting goes on. Model B, which is on page 7, I've laid out a series of alternatives, and I say here in the memo, you know, these are also options that all of you in the community and all the elected officials in the finance committee have. If you want to eliminate the need for an override, reduce the need for an override, lower the number in some sort of way, I've presented to the community, as requested many times, a menu, okay? This is a menu of choices. The final decisions have not been made. I'm just labeling out for folks on a couple of charts, if we were to not find the revenue to plug that $3.8 million budget gap, these are the sample reductions that would need to occur. And as I title Model B, everything is on the table. As should be no surprise to anyone who has followed the budget over the last couple years at least, if not the last 20 years or 10 years, ultimately we're down to the bone. There's really very, very few techniques that I have in my toolbox to avoid what I would say is described as cuts that will be irreversible damage to public safety, our school department, probably our municipal building staff, could impact the senior center, could impact any department. When you're dealing with a deficit of this nature, with unknowns moving forward, in my book, all options are on the table, all ideas are on the table, and really that's what is designed between the next couple weeks, is to get that community feedback on what kind of directions you want to go. And as illustrated here on these charts, I want to again make sure it's very clear. No decisions have been made. You will notice on these charts that they actually total up far in excess of the $3.8 million deficit. I put about $4.3 million worth of options in there. And that was designed specifically to encourage feedback and deliberation among the citizens, residents in the community, as well as the boards and committees. Because I get asked so often, I've also placed in here on page 10 and 11, I get asked these questions all the time, and so I just placed in here some preliminary data on some average estimates of what overrides would cost, as well as what other costs for ratepayers and taxpayers are on the hook this year. If you go to page 10, you'll see a summary of those anticipated costs. One thing we know is going to happen this year is from a ballot question a couple years ago, which is the construction of the Tri-County School. That's going to be on an average home in town, which, by the way, just so everybody knows, the average median home value in town is $679,000. Okay, so that's based on a $679,000 average home value. If your home is valued less, you will pay more. You'll pay less. And if your house is valued at a higher amount, you'll be paying more. But for the average individual in town, it's $120 that you'll see increase this year to pay for the Tri-County School. I would also note that that was a debt-excluded ballot question, and 81% of the citizens of this town voted in favor of that school. I would just note that. I've also added in here what a $3.862 million override would cost, again, for the average home owner based on that home value. And that's about $312 annually. To illustrate out some of the costs, that $312 does not include what I would call your baseline Proposition 2.5 increase, which is your 2.5. This past fiscal year was a $226 increase for the average home value for the person in Franklin. The Board of Assessors, as part of their tax rate hearing this year, put out a history going back to 1988. 1988. It's on the final page of this packet, and you can see right in there the average amount of what property taxes have gone up over the past 35 or 40 years in Franklin. You'll be, I think a lot of people will see this and they will be stunned to realize that for many, many years, property taxes in Franklin were going up $72, $57, $94, $88, $76, $46, $143. If you look at that 40-year history or so, it's an average of $172 a year based under Proposition 2.5. Living within Proposition 2.5, that's how much taxes have gone up on average over the last 40 years. So as I think many of you can realize, the cost of living has gone up significantly. The cost of doing business for the entire town and the schools have gone up as well. But folks can see in there at least some idea of what this would cost. I've also laid out, just for everybody's transparency, I've also laid out a chart on page 11 regarding trash, water, and sewer rates that were already scheduled to go up this year. The average sewer rate will go up about $60 this year, and that is single-handedly to pay for replacing the 109-year-old Beaver Street Interceptor sewage pipe. That carries 70% of the raw sewage of residences in this town, so it's a significant public works project, and it's probably the most important and expensive public works project in town history. So that's a very, very important project. And also, water rates will go up slightly to pay for unfunded state and federal mandates for PFAS and water main replacement programs. So while those rates are going up, I think people also should feel confident that that money is staying here in Franklin. That money that you are paying is not going anywhere else. It is going to improving the infrastructure in this community so that you can have good, clean water and also be able to flush your toilets. That's not a joke. That's literally the truth. The pipe they built in town 110 years ago lasted 110 years. It was a good investment, and hopefully this investment will last another 100 years for future generations. So that's it as a backdrop. Again, I've put in here a menu of proposed ideas of cuts. I've given everybody a couple of models for the community discussion, and obviously happy to answer any questions that folks may have as the session goes along. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Jamie. Superintendent Jagger.
Good evening, Good morning, everyone. I'm used to the night events.
I know.
My name is Lucas Jagger. I'm the proud superintendent of Franklin Public Schools. Thank you for attending today and joining us. I'm happy to answer any questions as well at the end. I just, not to reiterate some of the points that Jamie made, but I just wanted to add a little bit of context for the schools. So since the last time I was in this room, a lot of changes have occurred within the school department. You may know that the school committee took a vote for us to reorganize our district, which includes the unification of 3 of our middle schools into 1 middle school and 5 elementary schools unifying and consolidating into 4. That resulted in us delivering on a budget on January 28th that included the reduction of 20 positions as we move forward, prior to any other conversation regarding the budget, knowing that we have a fiscal deficit. What it did is it decreased the amount we would need in a structural deficit to continue to fund our schools. We are doing that work currently. That is set to take place for the fall, where we'll move into consolidating and unifying those schools, really to optimize our resources and create as many efficiencies as possible as we try to move forward. With that in mind, I talked about the budget delivery. Typically, the school department has had an approved budget later in the season, usually in March. You may recall last year, I think it was March 13th. One of the efforts through the will of the school committee in collaboration with the town administrator and the town council was for the school department to have their budget voted on and approved so that we could talk with actual numbers as we engaged in these types of sessions. So as you've heard, the school committee voted on a budget which was within the model that the town administrator had put out was it January? Did you put out the model? Yeah. Yes. In an effort to try to move this work forward and provide as much clarity to the community as possible. Within that unification, one of the things that we were able to do, even with the reductions that I talked about, the 20 reductions where we've already notified those staff impacted, we're able to preserve our class sizes by just putting more grades under one roof, so you're using less schools. Two of our schools will be coming offline as elementary schools, and the middle schools that are in the complexes will all be into one location, which you may know, which will be at the Horace Mann Oak Street facility. We were able to restore a few of the previous cuts that we sustained through the override. There were some critical positions that were eliminated that through this reorg we were able to bring back, which were key to our organization. So I just would say that from the school department, we've really put the effort in. One of the questions that was brought up is, what types of decisions have you made in order to help with the budget? And the one thing I would say is through the closure of schools, we've had declining enrollment, trying to right-size fit the district to put the proper number of kids in the buildings that we currently have was one of the steps that we've taken. Making sure that we finalized our budget in an effort to be at this table today with actual numbers and figures, and ultimately working collaboratively across the town. And I'll just end, I said this last time, I'm a superintendent for Franklin, but I'm also a proud resident, and I'm raising my own children in this community, and I just wanted you to know that I recognize the seriousness in which these conversations occur. Not everyone's in the same position and in the same boat, and everyone's coming with their own perspective on this and how these things impact them. But I just would say, what I will say, what I feel and what I've seen is the decision to solve the structural deficit this year is really about trying to solve this for our entire community. Schools, I benefit from the safety of our police department, our fire department, our DPW, our library. My own family is benefiting from those services, and I hope someday that I'm able to enjoy the services that a senior center, for example, provide. I have the hair already, so I'm feeling like I'm ready to go. But ultimately, I benefit from the veteran services here. My son plays for the veterans guitar at night. I see some of the vets in the room, and I just wanted to say that we've worked really hard to try to deliver and be as clear as possible with what we need in order to preserve the services that we have today, and we appreciate the time that you're taking to come out and be with us this morning, so thank you.
Thank you, Lucas. Does anyone on the committee want to make an opening statement or a comment before we go to the audience? Okay, that's exactly what I was hoping for. Okay, now's the time, and it's always hard to get the first one to put their hand up. So, thank you very much.
Mike? I think Sarah's got the mic.
If you just give us your name,
Yep.
Randy.
Yep, Randy LaRosa, 298 Main Street, Franklin. My family goes back to the 1600s in this area. I just have one question. We've been talking about the tax rate for us. What about the commercial tax rate? That hasn't been increased in years. And is there any work being done on increasing the commercial tax rates?
Go ahead, Jamie.
Yeah, great
Thank
question.
you.
Great question, Randy. So the commercial tax rate follows the residential tax rate. We have a single tax rate in Franklin. You can't just increase the commercial tax rate. Just want to make sure we're clear about something. And this is certainly open for public debate, but the tax rate hearing won't be till November. That's by state law, so that wouldn't be determined till later this year. You don't really increase revenue on the commercial tax rate. You just switch the proportion from residential to commercial. And the downsides to that have been well documented. I think for a lot of communities on the inner core of the state around 128, they had these debates 30, 40 years ago. Some of those communities do have what's called, Randy, I think you're referring to as a split tax rate. And that's been an issue that because we border with Rhode Island, because we border with many other communities that have industrial parks along the interstate, I think over the years, the Board of Assessors, other community officials have generally not necessarily seen splitting the tax rate as necessarily advantageous. And one of the reasons why is because when you split the tax rate and you hit businesses with a higher rate, to go back if it doesn't work out, and people say, geez, we're losing competition, or we're losing businesses to other areas, or the vacancy rate goes up, to go back to a single rate actually is a double whammy to a tax-paying resident. Because to go back to that means you have to then shift that burden back on the residents. Ultimately, when you look at the numbers, the residential homeowner really only gets generally about 1 or 2 years of relief under property taxes before that rate catches up again a year or two after they do a split tax rate. So I would encourage that if a lot of people in town are in favor of a split tax rate, they should talk to the Board of Assessors, who proposes the tax rate to the Town Council in November. And as I've said many times at a lot of meetings, ultimately when you're a community that tries to do a split tax rate, you try to do a very, very deep dive and comprehensive analysis to make sure that the decision the community is making is the right decision. Because ultimately, once you make that decision, it is incredibly difficult, if not impossible, to go back to what you had before.
Thank you, Jamie.
If I could add to that.
Sure.
So the other, first off, thank you, Jamie, for that. I think that's really helpful. One other piece to understand about the way the commercial versus residential taxes work, especially in Franklin, is because commercial is such a smaller percentage of the total tax revenue. To save, say, $1, and this is ballpark, so please don't hold me to it exactly. To save $1 on residential tax rates, you'd have to increase the commercial by something closer to $4, which makes it become very unattractive for businesses in Franklin. So we'd have to be willing to think about that. So when Jamie says that there's you might want to eventually go back, that's why is it can become very difficult for businesses and small businesses to operate, small or large, to operate in Franklin if the commercial tax rate is that much higher than in other places or than the residential.
Thank you, Ken. Jamie,
And
one last point.
yeah, Ken just brought up a great point. The other thing I failed to mention are 2 points. One, right now, for the entire tax levy in Franklin, 80% is paid by residences and 20% is already paid by the commercial industrial sectors. That's a very healthy average. And when you look at our Natics and Needhams and Norwoods, you see the same rates. So that's a very healthy ratio of residential to commercial industrial already. The second point I would make is commercial industrial space, including Franklin, has actually been devalued since the pandemic. Most notably, if you look at downtown Boston, they're struggling with this incredibly right now. And you may see in the newspaper, Michelle Wu and Mayor Wu and the city council have been into a battle about it. One of the reasons is commercial industrial properties have actually declined in value over the last 5 years due to the changing economic conditions around the world. So to put that onus on them may not actually be advantageous to the community. You may not see the return on investment you think you're going to from a split tax rate.
Thank you, Jamie. Yes, just name and address. She'll come to you. Thanks, Sarah.
Karen Landers, and I live on Union Street in Franklin. Well, the other part of that about businesses in residential, considering how inflation is, and if this override went through and we had to pay more taxes, we may not have the money to support our businesses. So just, thinking of that one. Thanks.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay, let me stand up. My apologies if my back is towards the rest of you. If you don't mind, just...
Name and address,
oh,
please, Susan.
Sorry, I'm forgetting this. Susan Rohrbach, 38 Philomena Way. So thank you all for hosting this session today. I've been to quite a few of them. I think they've been super productive, getting to hear the town's, all of the different perspectives from the town residents. But thank you all for the countless hours you dedicate to our town. If you don't mind, I just want to read something so I stay on track here. So we are in this town, I believe, very fortunate to have the many great services, whether it's fire, police, public schools, DPW, the library, the senior center, and the list goes on. Like anything else in life, we really don't understand or realize how important these services are until we need them and they are not there. So over the last few months, I've been really trying to picture how life would look different in Franklin if we did not find a way to address our financial deficit now and into the future. My family's own experience a couple of weeks ago put this into perspective for me. Jamie, thank you. You were kind enough to read my email at the last listening session. If I get emotional, I apologize here. Although I thought it would be important for me to speak to my own experience rather than just through an email. So during the last snowstorm that we had, it was a Saturday night, the day after Valentine's Day. My husband came home and I got a phone call from him. I was in the house and he was frantically telling me he had fallen in the driveway and he couldn't get up, and thought he really had seriously injured his leg. And he knew what he did because he did the same thing 14 years ago, and he was very upset with himself that he fell. So I called 911 around 7 o'clock, and the fire car within 5 minutes, but the firefighter told me that both ambulances were out on calls and that we would need to wait for mutual aid. And so I looked at my phone and I started timing it. And so given the serious nature of his injury, we couldn't get him off the ground. We waited, and the mutual aid ambulance arrived 15 minutes later. So even though 15 minutes may not sound like a lot, it feels like eternity when you're lying on the ground, shivering, and laying on ice and snow. We are so grateful that he did not need help or something even more serious like a heart attack or a stroke. So I think our story puts into context how critical having a third ambulance is in our town. We currently have the third ambulance staffed Monday through Friday during business hours. As Chief McLaughlin has said in previous meetings, that even though there is a third ambulance during the week, we still have over 400 mutual aid calls last year. As I mentioned in my email, this is not a criticism of our fire department, but rather the reality of just one example of how our quality of life will be different if we do not pass an override. As you can see from Jamie's documents, and as Chief McLaughlin has mentioned, the third ambulance is at risk of being cut if the override does not pass, because there's no other place to cut within the fire budget. I'm sure the schools and other town departments are in the same position, and that they will have to cut services that are important to all of us and that we rely on. So thank you for allowing me to tell my story. and for listening to all of the different perspectives.
Thank you, Susan. Jane, I know I don't need to tell you. No, that's okay.
All right, Jane Calloway, Trip, 607 Maple Street. I have a few questions. Start with some easy ones. On this paper, just a question where it says unused levy. That amount is very close to what the deficit number is. What is the unused levy? Doesn't have a page number, but it's on this.
So the unused levy is the amount of money that you can tax under Prop 2.5. And if you're in other communities, you'll see that they have what's called unused levy capacity, which is essentially that they may have gone up, say, 2% instead of 2.5. And that actually generates, for lack of a better word, a surplus in your levy capacity. I am not trying to give everybody a Prop 2.5 lesson today, okay? But I'm just trying to explain unused levy. The town of Franklin has never really done that. We have always had a demand and service that has been up to 2.5%. At least since Mr. Nutting got here at the turn of the century, the town has always gone up 2.5%, generally every year, some way or shape or form. And so we don't have any unused levy capacity in the budget to offset the deficit. I hope that does the best I can at explaining unused levy
So
capacity.
that's not like we have, like, after the levies, all in the budget, that's what we have left. That's not what that means.
I don't know if I
In other
got the
words,
question from
we
you.
have our income. It's too early in the morning. I've had one cup of coffee, so bear with me. But
Sure.
we have our operating budget and all of that stuff. So the unused levy is not money that's left over after all expenses are paid.
That's right.
Okay,
That's right.
that's what I wanted to find out. Also, on one of these brochures, you mentioned that there will be no trash increase. However, I believe it was a council meeting, could have been finance. They're all starting to look the same to me right now.
Yep.
You did mention that we would potentially be having another trash increase. So has that changed?
Yeah, that's changed. I mean, number one, we've been very fortunate through the hard work of Derek Adams and the DPW director, Bruce Canreggi, and Kathy Morad, our finance officials down there. Our waste management contract was up this year, and we've been able to manage costs very well. One of the benefits to having the same company perform that work is they're familiar with the community, and there's efficiencies in that. So we believe those costs are not going to rise as high as we had thought. It's very important to note that trash and recycling are global commodities. These things do get disrupted by geopolitical forces. Some people may remember we did have a larger trash increase some years ago when China decided that they were not going to take our trash anymore, for example, what was called the National Sword Policy. And so trash removal and recycling, while you bring it out to your curb, where all of that is hauled is actually a national and global economic issue. They've done a great job maintaining those costs. We also have a little surplus in the account, and so we believe that from that, in our retained earnings, that we don't need a trash increase this year.
Okay, another easy one, more for clarification. Again, I believe it was a council meeting. We were speaking about the fire truck that we ordered, and it took 2 years to get. When I watched that, I was under the impression we already paid for that truck, so I'm confused as to, because I think Council Cormier Ledger had asked a question, and you made the statement that we had already paid for that truck, and that we were saving for another one. So I'm kind of confused on why we're now paying for it if we already paid for it.
We didn't pay for it, but we got the authorization to borrow the money for it, which allowed us to put in the order. So you can't put in an order on a vehicle if you don't have the authorization of the legislative body, which is the council, to be able to put in that order. I would say with relation to the fire truck, this was on our fleet schedule, as the chief did explain, I think on February 5th, to maybe one of those questions that Jane may be referencing. If we were to put that truck in for order today, it would easily be $500,000 more, and it would easily be 2 to 2.5 years longer to get that truck. So This is actually one of those issues where the prepared capital plan and the fire chief and the staff were able to put the town in a position where we didn't have to wait 5 years for a fire truck, and we didn't have to pay more money for the fire truck, where we were able to get that order in just in time to get it within the 2 or 3 years. So the fire truck should be delivered this spring, but you don't really know that until they build it. And there are still, I know it doesn't feel like that in our lives all the time, but there still are global supply chain problems with mechanics. I know Council DeLurco's up here looking at me, and he knows exactly what I'm talking about. There still are issues. So we were not putting our cart before the horse to say the truck would show up this spring. We wanted to make sure until it was within a striking distance. So we did not, I don't know if I said that at a meeting, but I did say that we had the authorization to get the truck.
Well, that's what, I mean, you said it was paid for, so maybe it was meant, maybe when you said it, maybe you meant because it was already authorized, but I just wanted to clarify, and in no way, shape, or form am I arguing against the new fire truck. I do believe in our safety. Okay, so that was that one. 2 more things. The phosphorus plan. You had made a statement at a council meeting, I think it was last year, that when the phosphorus plan that is mandated but unfunded has to go through, that our water increase will actually be greater than our sewer increase for the Beaver Street project. Curious as to how or when that will be coming into effect.
The phosphorus plan, are you talking about stormwater?
Whatever phosphorus
talking about
plan
PFAS?
means.
Well, there's two.
PFAS, 2 different.
So phosphorus does relate to stormwater because the stormwater utility does deal with phosphorus removal. So that is completely separate, and I don't think that's what you're talking about.
This is the one that's supposed to be like $30 million.
Yes, that's stormwater. So I would say, we're still a year or 2 out on the phosphorus management plan. I will say, given what's going on down in the federal government, down in Washington, D.C., things may change, which actually may be a rate relief to people. We're going to have to wait and see, but in all seriousness, the phosphorus plan that Jane is referencing is an EPA unfunded mandate from the Environmental Protection Agency at the federal level. That was not a choice we had. That was not something we dealt with locally. That was not something we wanted to do. In fact, for those of you that don't know, about 8 years ago, the town of Franklin did sue the Environmental Protection Agency. The town of Franklin sued the EPA with the Builders Associations and the Charles River Watershed Association. There was a coalition of environmental and builder groups that did sue the federal government. We won some minor concessions in that lawsuit. You can go online and look under the stormwater website on our town website, and it has histories in there that you could do. But what Jane is referencing is not on any of these sheets. That is a plan that we are working with the federal government now on over the next year or 2. But it's to be determined when exactly they're going to come down on us and say, you have to start doing this.
All right, and the reason I asked that is because we're going to get an 8% increase in water in FY26 and FY27. So to your point, it could be 2 or 3 years. So by the time we're finished paying for that increase, we could be looking at yet another one. That's why I was asking.
Yep.
And if it's going to be greater than the sewer increase, that's going to be very impactful on people who have to do it. The other thing is, when you're talking about our property values going up, of course, everybody wants the property values to go up. Nobody wants them to plummet. However, if we look at the way this town has grown, and we look at the paperwork that was handed out, and all of these $1 million homes, if we controlled the way things were being built and put in other words, instead of those new units downtown that are like believe they're 2 bedrooms, they're $700,000 a unit, I heard. I have to verify that to make sure it's valid. But if we weren't building things like that and we were actually building single-family starter homes or townhomes, we would have controlled the way our properties did grow in value, and we wouldn't be jumping in a situation that we are. The property values may be very high here, and I get with the median income, but there's a great portion of people in this town who don't fit that median income. even with all of these discounts, which are wonderful, and I know the town doesn't control them, but the guidelines to get on these, I specifically know people who are $20 over the limit and cannot get any resource help. They are sinking. Based on just the numbers you put out here, which don't include the CPA increase that we will get automatically based on our tax increase, just on those numbers, the average person is looking at about $189, $190 a quarter increase in their monthly bills. We need to also remember, while there may be many families in this town that is like pocket change or can just, no problem, you know, we can do it. It's one night out. We don't go for a dinner or reduce one vacation or whatever it is for that. There are people that are already in the negative on a month-to-month basis. To even find an extra $5 is not possible. So while I understand the town might need the money and the deficit, I think we also have to look at to why we got here. And part of that is the way this town has grown and the way things that we allowed to happen in this town that also contributed. It's not just an inflation issue. And we have to also figure out how we're going to help the people who are struggling. And so everybody understands, because I did have a conversation with someone. When I stand here and say this, I'm not saying it because I'm just like trying to be a cheerleader for people. I'm saying it because I walked in those shoes, literally. I went to food pantries. I did all that. I dug myself out. And I'm okay in the moment, but it's only going to take one thing that puts me right back down. Every month, I live month to month. If I can't afford it, I don't do it. I will use again what I've said 100 times over. I have 2 sets of steps on my back porch that are collapsing. We cannot use them. Do I want it fixed? Yeah, I do. I want to be able to go out my back door, onto my deck, and go into my yard, not have to go back through the house, the front door, and down the driveway. But that is a want. If I can't afford to do it, it stays undone, because what's more important is the roof over my head, the food in my mouth, the utilities, and the clothes on my back. Those are the needs. If we can't prioritize what the needs are in this town versus the wants, it won't matter if we do a $1 million override or a $10 million override, because we will be back here every single year because we can't figure out the priorities that are correct in this town.
Thank you, Jane.
Good morning. My name is Karen Wellerson Jewell, 222 Daniel Street. And I'm speaking as a senior resident, a Friends of the Franklin Elders board member, and a former member of the Massachusetts Council on Aging director. I understand the challenges that budget makers face, having been seated in front of the finance committees and the town leadership. I also know the value of the services that the Franklin Senior Center provides and the ever-increasing need of the 60-plus population in Franklin, which is growing from 25% to 46% by 2030, according to Housing.com and UMass Amherst. As you are aware, the Franklin Senior Center budget is for personnel and minimal operation expenses. Sarah and her team are not asking for programming dollars to support the myriad of educational, informational, entertaining, and exercise program which the center makes the center a vibrant one. These expenses are paid through grants, participant fees, and the financial support of the Friends of the Franklin Elders. As taxes continue to grow to support the town services, seniors face increasing financial challenges on a fixed income. An increasing number of our senior population are at or below the poverty level, and the Senior Center provides hot meals a day, twice a day, Monday through Friday, to combat the food insecurity many of them face. It also provides a warm and inviting environment, both physically during times of extreme cold and emotionally as the hub for socialization and inclusion. As a rule, this age group does not ask for money for themselves. They do not see that they are the neediest group. And I'll leave you with a story from my past. After filling out an application for paperwork for oil assistance, I told an 86-year-old she also qualified for nutritional assistance. Then she looked at me and she said, "Honey, leave it for someone else who has more of a need." As so many seniors in Franklin have a need and depend on the senior center for their food, fellowship, and a home away from home. Sarah and her team do an incredible job providing the critical needs of seniors in our town, but she needs the financial support of the town. As a percentage of the overall town budget, seniors receive an infinitesimally small percentage in proportion to their population size. Please support her budget. Thank you.
Thank you. Oh, I'm sorry. Bob. Bob, name and address, please.
Good morning. I'm Bob Kaufman, 4 Cohasset Way. This is the second time I've spoken. I spoke at this same meeting about 2 weeks ago.
Sure.
My background with the Senior Center is that I've worked as a volunteer in the Sunshine Club, or the Supportive Day Program, as we call it, for 7 or 8 years. And I'm in my 3rd year as a member of the Council on Aging. What I would first like to do is put in perspective where we are today financially and the needs of the Senior Center. After the override failed to pass, various functions within the town had to contribute parts of their budget to cover the shortfall for the schools. The Senior Center took a 37% cut in our current budget. To quantify that, $260,000 out of $700,000 was cut from our budget. Now the good news is that $260,000 was our revolving fund. That was money that was accumulated over many years to be used for discretionary spending and emergency situations. However, we no longer have that buffer. And the problem going forward is where the school population is declining, the senior population is still increasing. In fact, last year, more people turned 65 in the United States than any time in history. And there's still 4 to 5 more years of growth of the baby boomers. Anybody born in 64, if they retire at 65, that's 2029. Something else you can blame on us boomers. The other thing that we have to confront is the actual change in this population. I'm going to use the Sunshine Club as a microcosm. We have roughly 30 members. Pre-COVID, out of that group, maybe 10% had mild cognitive issues. Today it's 90%, and it's not mild issues anymore. We're dealing with Alzheimer's, we're dealing with vascular dementia, we're dealing with FTD. I'm not saying the percentages apply to everybody who walks through the front door of this place, but we're seeing more and more people that are having issues that they didn't have 4 years ago. Some people, as was pointed out, some people come here for meals. It may be the most nutritious meal they get during a day, especially if they live alone. They come here in the wintertime because they have inadequate heat. They come here in the summer because they don't have air conditioning. They come here because they're fighting loneliness. Some of the people that I've talked to, occasionally I'll just sit down. I'll watch somebody come in, sit down. I don't know who they are. Sit down next to them, introduce myself, and just ask them how they're doing, or do they have any concerns. This is why we exist. We are here to serve an aging population that needs our help. notes in the wrong order. The most successful way to mitigate the effects of Alzheimer's is nutrition and exercise. And as any of you who participate in the programs here, you know we go from Tai Chi to chair yoga to chair exercises, and I know I'm probably leaving out another 4 or 5. I haven't attended them all yet. As far as nutrition goes, obviously Ann and her staff do a remarkable job. Given the cost of food today, what we're able to get for $4 to $5 when a Happy Meal goes for 13 is pretty remarkable. And it continues to be a challenge for them, but we owe them a big congratulation. I'm keeping this a lot shorter than I did last time. I was trying to think how to put the whole thing in perspective. I still get a feeling when you're talking about the senior center and the schools, it's them and them versus us. It shouldn't be that way. It doesn't have to be that way. We've all heard the expression, it takes a village. Yes, it does. It takes a village to nurture and grow our children. It takes that same village to enhance the quality of life for our seniors. Thank you.
Thanks, Frank. Jim, name and address, please.
Good morning, everybody.
Name and
Good
address.
morning.
Name and address, please.
What a fantastic occasion here with the Franklin
Jim
Senior
Lane.
Center. Pardon me? I forgot. No, I'm Jim Lane. Well, thank you. I guess we should laugh a little bit today, right?
Yeah. You go, Jim.
No, I'm Jim Lane. My family and I have been here since 1978. Been a member of this community, the Senior Center, the Knights of Columbus as a Franklin officer and a trustee. And I'm a retired business executive and also a retired naval officer. At this point, I'm a self-proclaimed advocate for the Senior Center. I feel that it's important for me as a community member and as a dedicated Franklin Senior member that I share a reminder of what the Senior Center does, its value, and what it means to our members, to our town council, our town decision makers. How valuable is this Franklin Senior Center? In review, our Franklin Senior Center is, and Jamie said it, one of the best in the state of Massachusetts. Before I trip here. It is responsible to help our participants with independence, quality of life, needs, programs, tools, opportunities to promote mental health, social, emotional, physical well-being, advocating for relevant programs and services, focal point for aging issues, and a liaison to local, federal, and state governments for the aging. As you know, the Franklin Senior Center is for people who are 55 and above. And not only does it service Franklin, but neighboring towns. The Franklin Senior Center offers a variety of programming and services. Where's Trish? Nursing care, exercise, education, social, adult day programming, services, and veteran services, social services, and even offers breakfast and lunches at our Common Grounds Cafe, and even more. So, are we aware, we as a community, the town council, the town board, town decision makers, how important really is our Franklin Senior Center? How much value does the Franklin Senior Center give? The purpose of my talk is to encourage all of us, our members, even new members, our town council, our town board, our town decision makers, and yes, our members right here, to find a deeper understanding on how the Franklin Senior Center does and gives all this great, valuable help, assistance, expertise, counseling, and partnership to our people. Do you know enough about what, how, with whom, so we can make better decisions? That's my point. So we can all help make better decisions. Here are critical reminders from my perspective. Each of us need to be willing to speak. You heard Bobby here speak out and defend the value of this senior center. Know what the values are. Know the needs that our Franklin community and our neighboring communities have, and how the Franklin Senior goes out of its way to provide these. And believe me, it's a tremendous challenge and responsibility they have. Are you aware of the Franklin Senior Center staff and what they do individually as a team? Do we all appreciate and know what the Senior Center staff does, the work, the time, the effort, the professionalism? And by the way, are you participating in the activities? Because there's a lot of them. Bobby mentioned a lot of them already. Lastly, also, think of this. How does the Franklin Senior Center benefit you, us? You know that the Franklin Senior Center conceptually is responsible and works safety and health and protects the health of our families. Because a lot of people here are grandparents, they're parents, so their health and their safety is really important, and the Franklin Senior Center and their staff is directly responsible for that. I encourage my request to you. So when the Franklin Senior Center teams up and puts together proposals, please make sure you not only acknowledge, remember what the Franklin Senior Center does, the value, and how you should endorse this. Vote to improve, vote to team up with the Franklin Senior Center team and its leadership. Closing. If you do this and you make this kind of effort, you're going to make an even better, stronger place, a place of peace, a place of enrichment, in giving, a Franklin Center that promotes good health, recovery, to us, to Franklin, to the neighboring towns, Franklin, our home, and our entire community. And be proud that we've done our best for the ones that brought us here to Franklin. Thank you very much for listening. I appreciate your friendship, and hopefully this will get you to think a little bit more about how important this really is. Thank you.
Thank you, Jim.
Good morning.
Morning. Just name and address, please.
Jay Cruiser, 375A Oak Street, just around the corner. Could walk here every day, but I don't. Now, Jim basically said he was here from 1978. The same year I arrived and built a house. And the taxes started at $500 a year. $500, 1978. It's not even on the list, Jamie. Not on the list. Anyway, I have several questions. I want to thank Chairman Mercer for his openness and ideology of having a committee listen to seniors and other people that are concerned about a potential tax override. It wasn't the way it was done the last time, and it failed the last time, and I think it should fail again. Jamie, was your contract just renewed the other night?
No.
It wasn't?
No.
Well, anyway, I want to congratulate you for becoming president of the Municipal Association. That's a big job. And everybody, as a result of that, looks up to you and Franklin. And I know you had a lot of work to put this program together. And unfortunately, I disagree with it because Lucas has failed miserably running the school. And you have not said no. We need to say no to a tax override because the question is, assuming Lucas gets his tax override, what's he going to do the next time around? 2 years down, 3 years down. What's he doing today to fix it? I hear rumors of all kinds that there are things going on at the school where people are being hired to pay with big pay to promote what he claims to be mandated programs. I'm not sure that I believe all of that. Anyway, I want to thank the committee of people here for donating their time.
Thank you. Just a couple of quick things so that I want to make sure that everybody understands that what we're looking at here is a town-wide structural deficit. It's not just the schools. It's the entire town. And if we are not able to find that $3.682 million, then every department is going to end up feeling some pain. Not just the schools, DPW, police, fire, senior center, library, every town department is going to feel it. And as I said in the very beginning, I think it's important to so everybody understand that this is based upon the current level of services being provided to the community at the senior center, by the police, by the fire, by the DPW. All of these departments, the current level of services, in order to continue to provide them in FY26, we are $3.682 million short. Now, the decision on an override belongs to the residents of the community. Does not belong to the town council or this body. It's this body and the council. Ultimately, the council will make the decision as to whether to put a ballot question on at an election to possibly fund with an override. That decision is that of the councils and the councils alone. This body, I looked at this body when we put it together and started these listening sessions. What I wanted to do was come together, listen to the community. This body, this joint budget subcommittee will make a recommendation to the town council on the 19th of March. And at that council meeting, the decision will be made whether to put a ballot question on and when and how much. But the current structural deficit that we're talking about is town-wide, and everybody needs to clearly understand that. And I don't know if he's here. Chief Lynch, are you here?
Here he is.
Sarah, could you throw a mic at him, please? Chief, if we are unable to find the $3.682 million, how do you see that affecting the police department?
So in the memo that you have, the list of items at $4 million that the council, I guess, would consider if it came down to that, what would be cut, you'll see the police department has $250,000. So that's going to be 2 to 3 patrol officers that we would have to cut and reduce, which would leave us at basically around, we're at 58 now, so we'd end up at 55, which would be 1 more patrol officer than what we had and was budgeted for 25 years ago in the year 2000. I've talked about this before. I cannot afford to eliminate. We asked for 4 additional officers several years ago and received them due to the fact that the biggest complaint that the department receives on a regular basis is traffic related. We also had issues with having to order individuals to work. Patrol officers, they don't want the overtime, they don't bid it, they don't want to volunteer for it because it's just a change in culture. They're not looking for that premium pay. We used to fight over overtime, ability to work details, things like that. Times have changed. They don't want to do it. And without that increase of 4 officers, we were regularly ordering. Now our ordering has been reduced significantly. Our traffic enforcement has increased, and the number of motor vehicle stops has increased significantly. So if we were to lose those bodies, it's going to be a tough choice. It really is. Cannot go back to reducing the number of people that are in the patrol operations division for those reasons. I can't ignore the #1 issue that people keep calling us on and asking for for us to do something about being traffic. And I can't go back to having my officers get ordered all the time. Otherwise, I'm going to start to see people leave. A lot of the officers that we've hired are transfers. They came to Franklin from other departments. We're not only one of the biggest departments in the area, but we're in size and so forth, but we're one of the most sought after for what we're able to offer with the different services we have, the different units, our relationship with the Metropolitan Law Enforcement Council, etc. If we start eliminating people, and we're already starting to see it in some of the other departments as well as they're trying to recruit, because we're down 4 right now. We have 4 onboarding right at this moment. But I have an opening that I'm not going to do anything about. It's very difficult to hire people when they hear about the town going through the situation that we're in and the possibility that the department may lose money. So I can't really, and I don't want to have to lay anybody off if I don't have to. And I certainly wouldn't hire somebody without letting them know exactly what's going on. So most likely we're going to lose a number of people in our community service division. And those are the individuals that are our SROs. Those are the individuals that come down here to the senior center. They're the people that put in the car seat installations when people have a new child and don't know how to really get that car seat in. We want to make sure that those children are secure. Because those people are not replaced when they end up taking time off or something like that. There's no easy place for us to take anybody out of our schedule if we lose the 2 officers. 95% of my budget is salaries. 95%. Of the $7.8 million that we submitted for a budget, only $387,000 is expenses. There's no place for me to take $250,000 out of a $387,000 expense. So it basically means that we're going to lose personnel.
Thank you, Chief.
Can I just
Sure.
respond? I just wanted to take a moment to just respond to Mr. Caruso's comments. And I know last year I was here, you insulted me and said I didn't pass math class. Since then, I started this off to try to get ahead of some of this, but since that time, a year prior to that conversation and those comments, we have voted to redistrict our entire school system, close 2 of our 3 middle schools and consolidate, and go down from 5 elementaries to 4, which is resulting in some economies of scale that we knew and we have delivered on at the tune of $1.8 million in staffing alone. When you incorporate some of the other pieces coming to this table today, not all have been very popular. Particularly, within our community when it comes to, families directly impacted, other folks in town. But we really are trying to put the effort in to come to the table and say, you know what, I didn't want to come back a year later and have the same question asked to me. What have you guys done? And ultimately, we've really worked hard. We have had a declining enrollment, which is why we were able to make those decisions and reorganize our school. We've worked very hard to not only shift and reorganize and place staff in new buildings, reduce staff, but we also did it while trying to deliver a budget in January so that we could be on pace to have these discussions. No one goes into this role to do an abysmal job or to disappoint. I'm the chief advocate for schools. I've never once pitted a senior center, a department, any other factor in trying to solve our problem. We have worked together as a community to do this. I think we're at the precipice of, I feel like for what makes this one feel different than last year was it's and you just heard the chief talk about a joint effort to maintain the level of services we provide. We did a line-by-line on February 4th, which is a line-by-line budget analysis. You can go to that video if you'd like, but there's also on our website, you can click on the budget documents if you want to get into the detail on each of the lines and where the funding is going. We really have put forth a budget that we feel is a reset of our foundation, reorganizing our schools. It's included reductions in staff before we were even forced to through a failed override again. We said, okay, if we build these from the ground up, the slide decks that we have show you the class size ranges, all within the recommended ranges. Nothing's, we're trying to be as transparent as possible and ultimately come to this table together as a group where every department brings value to this community. We've heard it in every venue that we've been in, and I just wanted to say that because I feel it's important. As we work together, the goal here was to put that out. I certainly can listen. I know not everyone necessarily agrees, and we all have different priorities. And I said at the beginning, not everyone's in the same position, and I think we need to respect that completely. But my job is to put forth a budget reset based on the number of students we have and make sure that we're providing a high-quality education that the families who've had children go through our district benefited from, but also families today and the families of the future are also having those same opportunities. So, thank you.
Thank you, Lucas.
See the hands. I'm
Sarah.
coming guys next.
Tom, if I could, I have to actually run, and I just wanted to say one thing before I left, if I could.
I'm
Yeah.
sorry.
Sorry, that's
Sure,
okay.
Ruth
I didn't.
Ann, go ahead.
George was stealing my mic.
Go ahead.
No, okay. I just, I have to run to a meeting, so I have to leave early, and I can't leave without getting on my soapbox for a minute. But I did want to share something. I thought it was pretty powerful that we read Susan Roebuck's email about her husband having to sit and wait for an ambulance. I just sometimes we get messages through the school committee channel. And I got an email recently, and I shared it with some of the town councilors previously. I had redacted it because, whenever there's kids involved in emails, it's really hard to share, the challenges and whatnot. But
Ruth Ann, can you come closer to your mic?
I got permission from this parent who may come and speak herself. But so I'm going to still redact it just to make sure that I don't put anyone in a comfortable position. But I just want to read it. Because one of the consequences of this failed override last year, because it really gets to a point where we cannot fit any more kids into a classroom, or can't cut any sort of student services that we really are required to provide. So what ends up happening is we put fees. We vote fees, much like the municipal side can put fees on stormwater and things like that, and it adds to your tax bill. We add to people's school bills, and I remember. Talking to the parents during the override vote, just when it failed, just saying, public school isn't so public anymore. So I just want to read this because I think it's relevant to what is different about public education currently versus maybe 20, 30 years ago even. Good morning. My name is, I'll just call her Mary. My name is Mary. I have 4 children in the Franklin School District. I'm writing this in concern over the current athletic fees, bus fees, etc. I have X amount of sons who both play a sport and another who is coming up to play a sport next year. Playing sports in Franklin is a huge part of their schooling, and I think it teaches them many qualities they need in life to succeed, teaches them to work as a team, responsibility, helps with their mental health. As you know, some of the sports are now $1,000. Bus fees $500. I don't want to give too much. We don't live a luxurious life. I am a teacher myself. Every month is stress about bills, food, rising costs of everything. I requested through the business office a fee reduction for my children to play. With the holidays ahead, paying $3,000 for my children to be involved in a Franklin activity is somewhat insane. Next year, when all the kids are going to be participating in their various activities at the schools, I will be paying $7,000 for them to play sports, ride buses, etc. I'm writing this out of concern for programs in this town, as my child was impacted with the cuts of the music program. I'm a registered voter, very upset that the override didn't pass. I'm asking that the business office take into consideration capping fees. Many are leaving here, attending private schools, which is disheartening to see it in such a great town. So this isn't uncommon. You know, if you've got 2, 3, maybe even 4 kids, and they all want to play one sport, do an activity, maybe all of them take the bus, that's upward of a $5,000 bill annually for parents. And I know that a lot of parents maybe aren't in this room today, and there were some parents who did vote no on the override, and it might have, you know, the 6.8 override was going to cost on the median home price around like $100 a month or a little bit less. I know that the override that we're discussing, that 3.8 on our median income, is about $25 a month. So I recently heard somebody on social media say, gosh, if I knew it was only that much, I would have voted for it. So just, you know, it's inequitable, because what happens is the kids who want to try a sport, I have a friend whose son wanted to join a team because his girlfriend was on the team, and he wanted to give it a try, and the mother was like, well, you know, for $600 it's more than a try. You better commit to this like sport, you know. So it becomes a situation where kids have pride, families have pride. They're not sure if they can qualify for assistance. And to Jane's point earlier, most of the time these assistance programs, they're not very aggressive. So it's you know, you've really got to be in the poverty level. So when you're a middle class family and you're struggling to raise a family, it's a big hit. So I have to run. I apologize, but thank you so much. This is an awesome turnout, and thank you, Chairperson, Tom and Jamie.
Thank you, Ruth Ann. I think before I go back to you, Jim, just
right over there. There's a hand. Sarah, right in front of you.
Hi, my name's Tom Sullivan. I live in Town Line Road. I'm actually an ex-chairman of the Finance Committee going back into the early 2000s. I'm a retired healthcare executive. I look at it from a different perspective. You don't know the you don't know the services that you have until they're not there. Again, being a healthcare executive, I've seen hospitals close throughout the state. You have the issue going on in Norwood. All those services are gone. You have issues going on up in Neshoba. You talk about ambulance rides. Think what's going on up there. We have a choice to make. Either we fund the services that we want, that we actually don't see, but they're always there. Okay? So there's a decision to be made on that. You don't know what you don't know. So I'm in support of an override. All right? I think it's best for the community, for all of us to be served by all the people that we have here. All right? We always complain about people making money. What you need in your business is people who want to work for you. When they want to work for you, you got to pay them well. All right? When they work for you, you get better service out of them. You have long-term employees, and they make that extra effort for you. So I'm in support of the override, and I'll help in any way.
Thank you. Thank you, Tom.
Hi, Shannon Nealon, Franklin resident. I knew there was a waffle bar, I would have been coming to these things so many more times. But I just have a couple questions about the packet that was handed out, sort of. And this is great. This is exactly what I spoke to last time about how people need to understand there's so much granular detail that you're almost drowning in it. I spent like 4 hours last night just trying to look through stuff online, and let me tell you, it was very exhausting. So the high-level stuff is great. This is really going to help people. I think maybe a little more detail before people vote so they understand really exactly, I think, knowing, as this gentleman said, you don't know what you don't know, right? So knowing exactly what is going to impact you, I think somebody else spoke to that, is going to get people either all the way in yes or all the way in no. I think there's that middle ground that are kind of still a little bit in flux, and you're going to get those people to one side or the other. So in my extensive research that I did last night, which might be wrong, so you'll have to correct me, but am I to understand that the current money that is brought in from us, like regular people, taxpayers, is property tax, right? To which there will be an increase of 2.5%, right?
What I always term it, the baseline proposition 2.5. That's your baseline that's allowed under statute that the town has been taxing up to for 20-something years. That is up to 2.5. An override question, like any community, is to go above that 2.5%.
Yeah. I'll get to that. But the question is, it's the property tax.
That's correct.
Plus, we know that next year, whenever taxes increase, it's going to go up 2.5%, right?
That's right.
And you gave the example of 226, which again, the example's super helpful, right? Nobody needs to be relying on these down to the penny. But real world examples are where regular people and dummies like me can figure out what is actually going on, right? So that was great. Then we have the debt exclusions. So we still have debt exclusions for Keller, Horace Mann, the high school, right?
Yes. So Horace Mann fell off the tax rolls 2 years ago. Keller Sullivan's falling off this year. So ultimately, both of those schools are now paid for, and that actually does offset the quantity of money that has to be raised for new debt exclusions in the future, or because ultimately you don't save money from that because the tax is sunsetted when those payments are paid off on a debt exclusion. So
Okay,
the
but
only
like
ones left are going to be a second Horace Mann project that was done, I think, in the early 2000s, the high school, and Tri-County. Those are your only three left.
Right, but those are like another line item, right? That's not included
Completely
in the
separate
property
section
tax.
under the budget model. You're correct.
Right, okay.
Yep.
So property tax, that's going up. The enterprise budget, which is the Horace Mann one, I think you said Keller's coming off, which is cool, and then the high school. And then we're going to, so we already have those in your current tax, and then we're going to add 120 for Tri-County, right?
Correct.
That, again, the example.
Yep.
Okay. So then there's enterprise funds, so you already pay your taxes, you already pay for your water and sewer, right?
Well, enterprise funds are, and I do think people always comment to me and appreciate this, 70% of the town are rate payers. And it's explicitly said in the memo that, and I always use that verbiage because 30% of the public roughly are on private well or private septic, and they don't pay those increases because they're not paying into the public system. So the enterprise funds are only paid into by the ratepayers who see those services. So in the case of water, sewer, 70% of the town, trash and recycling obviously is a higher percentage, and then the stormwater affects everybody.
Right. But that's another line item. If you're a ratepayer.
If you're a ratepayer, that's correct.
That's a line item.
That's correct.
Okay. And then that is projected to go up 97.
That's about right. Yeah, based on the numbers in there, you're correct.
Yep. Okay. So if you're looking at your tax bill currently, right now, presently, you're paying your property tax, the debt exclusions that are on there, the enterprise funds, your tax bills, then automatically next year going to go up these amounts, right? Okay.
That's correct.
Okay. So then there's the two big boogeymen in the room, which are, and I don't know if the police chief is still here, I don't want to get in trouble, but there's the police station, That's going to be another debt exclusion, right?
That's correct.
Okay. And then there's also the override to fill the budget deficit, correct?
Correct.
Correct.
Okay. So I think people need to understand that there's the taxes you're currently paying, there's the necessary increases that are going to come in just because government, and then you have an override on top of that and the police station on top of that. So I think Tri-County was already in there in the exclusion. So I think people, I think it would be helpful if maybe on like a main page of the website you broke down all of these things. It wouldn't be necessarily fun for people to see, but when people are deciding, there could be people who are deciding, well, I want the police station, but I don't want the override. Or I want the override, but I don't want the police station. So people need to know this going in. They need to understand on X date we're going to vote on, or projected, on the override. Are we going to vote on the override before or after we vote on the police station, or at the same time?
Yeah, it's down the road. The police station is down the road.
Yeah.
And they will have that option. They could vote if an override question got put on a ballot, they could vote yes on an override, and then a year from now, 2 years from now, whenever that comes, the police station, if in fact police station debt exclusion question, and again, debt exclusion, override lasts forever, debt exclusion has an end. A debt exclusion for a police station, again, would be a separate vote.
Right.
And they would have that option then.
Okay, but there would be, the override vote is happening before the police station vote,
Yes.
theoretically?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
So I think people, when they're voting for the override, they need to remember that they're also going to be, pretty soon, voting on the police station, no offense, the police station.
Yep.
So I think it's just important to maybe capture this somewhere in a way that doesn't take a person 4 hours to dig into, to find. It was all findable. I know that's what Jamie's going to say. It was all findable. That is correct. However, it wasn't super easy to find, and half of my job is research. So it's not like it was super, super easy. I think it would be helpful to do that. My other question is about the list that you gave of the possible reductions. Again, also very helpful. People need to understand, if you don't vote for the override, what's going to get cut and from where. Very helpful. So I know these are just examples, but when you say eliminating positions, so some of these had eliminating positions, is that, I'm trying to marry this with what the police chief said, is that getting rid of people we currently have?
Yes.
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 Okay, that's good to know. I think that some people think that that's cutting, because does the budget propose additional hires?
No. Current level of services.
The only thing I'd say is the elected Board of Assessors asked for an additional position. I respect their decision, I respect their analysis, given the fact that state law has changed in terms of the evaluation schedule. And that's not something we need to have right now, but when an elected board presents that to me, I put it into the model. Same thing with the school committee, they vote on a budget, I put it into the model.
So the budget with the deficit
Yep.
is current services.
Current
So-
services, those are current staff, absolutely. Those
We
are
would-
current employees that will ultimately be laid off depending on what department they're from. That's correct.
That's super important to distinguish. Maybe you think it's obvious, but from people I've talked to, it's not obvious. Kind of maybe people are under the impression, for better or worse, under the impression that we're trying to add people, so it's not really a true reduction, you're just not getting to add people.
No,
There's
and
some-
again, that's why I asked the police chief to speak, because he actually told you that he'd have to reduce staff.
Yes.
Current staff.
But not
and
everybody's-
in a minute, I'm going to ask the fire chief to give the same.
But not everybody's listening to these sessions.
Yeah, I get that.
So if there's
That's why we're having 6 of them.
not everyone's listening to one of these, let alone 6 of these. So if there's a way to put out to everyone exactly what this looks like in a high-level way, not in the granular way. I appreciate the granular way because the people that really want to dig in can. But we need a higher level right on the front budget page
this memo do the trick?
No, this is too.
This is
with all
too
due
much
respect,
info?
It's too much.
Okay, we'll cut it down.
We literally just need an A plus B equals C for people that don't have time to get through. It, you started to get there. You added what needed to be added, what was going to be added to put us there.
So just pluck out pages 10,
But
11, 12, 13.
we don't need all the
Yeah.
words.
Right. Well, just so you know, Shannon, I mean, this is a process in evolution, right? You've been to another one of the sessions. The model has changed. And part of the starting back in September, I think as Tom has said numerous times, after last year's kind of rushed attempt at an override, right, there was not a lot of community engagement, and that's what we're trying to do. So people, you're right, people are not watching and paying full attention now. They will hopefully perk up in the near future. As I said earlier, I can't really do much until January when the governor puts out their budget and I start getting real numbers from healthcare companies, insurance companies. Like, I just can't move it that much faster. But what the goal is today, and in this memo, is to be very transparent, because some people on this committee want to know the details. Some people in the audience want to know this level of detail. This information is already on the town website. We will repackage it in multiple formats so that, to your comment. But I do think eventually all of you in this room, including yourself and others, also have to try to get the word out to people to get engaged at what's going on. And I think that's
I am.
But that's exactly the moment we're at right now.
Right.
We're in that moment. We're in this month. We need to, I think, all of us, make sure that our friends and neighbors and loved ones and family members and folks that we see in town are aware of these dynamics. So I will definitely take your comment to heart and repackage this data and put it out there so it's blatantly obvious to the core information that you're speaking to.
To be clear, this wasn't a criticism.
No, I know.
This was a comment.
Absolutely.
Because
I
I
agree.
think that this is great. I was very in favor of these. I think these are great. I think what you're doing is great. I'm sharing to you that from your perspective, it's like an author doesn't publish his own book, right? He sends it to a publishing company, and they read it and they say, oh, you missed a period here and you misspelled this. And so just from other outside eyes, these are things that might help you get where you're going. From people that don't have 4 hours to look through the website and don't have 3 to 4 hours to listen to each one of these sessions, because people don't. People are working multiple jobs.
Thank you. Before I go to the next speaker, is
If I could ask-
Chief McLaughlin. Chief McLaughlin, are you in the room? I'd just like to ask, and I asked the chief of police, and I'm asking the fire chief basically the same questions, and I'm asking them for a reason, because as I sit here with my fellow seniors, the most important things to us at our stage of life, number one, the senior center. Number two, public safety, public health. So that's why I asked the police chief, and I'm asking the fire chief the same questions as to how would it affect his department if we are unable to find $3.82 million.
Thank you.
Chief.
So our story is very, very similar to the police department. First, recruitment and retention. We currently have our last 2 hires at the Mass Fire Academy right now. They're due to graduate on May 2nd. I got to tell you, I would hate to start my career at the Fire Academy with this looming over my head. But that's exactly what's going on with these 2 kids right now. Right now, we're onboarding for 2 more vacancies that we have. One of them is a transfer with about 6 years from another department. We get a lot of firefighters from other departments around us, which is a testament to the Franklin Fire Department. We love that. That way, that tells us that we're desirable, they want to work here, and that's a great thing. But at the end of the day, before I hire these 2 that we're in the process of onboarding right now, I need to have a heart-to-heart with these folks before they pull the trigger and leave a job. So that's where we're in the middle of right now while this process is going on. Just like the police department, our budget is 93.4% personnel cost for FY26 projected budget. We've got a very little expense budget. If we lose $250,000, which is proposed in Plan B, it has to come from expenses. It just has, personnel costs, I'm sorry. There's just nothing there in the expense account for us to take it from. So that's where it's going to be. What happens if we lose firefighters? Our message has been crystal clear since June 26th of last year. If we lose 2 to 3 firefighters, 4 firefighters, our A3, our third ambulance that we have in service part-time now, is out of service. I said it last June. I'm saying it here again. It's not a threat. I don't have the personnel. We're only manning the truck part-time. The truck should be manned full-time right now. And we did give that presentation on February 5th in front of the council. I really encourage anybody that hasn't seen it to watch it. Any questions, you can call me at any time. We need that truck. The data is there. We had 5,500 calls in calendar year 24. We've been going up in the last 5 years about 250 calls a calendar year, which means in calendar year 26, we project we're going to have 6,000 calls for service here, and 68% of that is EMS calls. So again, I just, if this override does not pass, it will be devastating for the Franklin Fire Department. We've grown in the last 3, 4, 5 years. We've done well. We've got great support from this council, great support from the TA, we've got great support from the community. We just want to maintain the needs of the community and make sure when someone calls and has a true emergency that we're there for them. Okay? Thank you.
Thank you, Chief. George, did you have a comment?
Just a couple of comments. The Finance Committee is meeting at the end of April, 3 nights. Every line of every single budget, there's nothing to hide in there. Every line of every single budget, including the schools, is open for discussion. But sadly, I look out here, the only people I've seen at our meetings are the department heads. I've been on since 2013, and we've had, to my recollection, 3 public questions in 11 years. The point is, it's available. We'll go through every one, and the department head that we're talking about is sitting in the chamber. That's just a shameless plug, I guess. The other thing I want to mention, Jane mentioned that we grew differently. But as a numbers person, and I was a banker forever, when you look at let's take Woodview Way, which is the apartments across from Gorelick's. They're valued at about $1 million, plus or minus. They contribute about $600,000 to the tax rolls every single year. They contribute, and this is a number from Sarah Lucas, they contributed at that year about 30 kids to the schools. Net result, if you do the arithmetic, we gained $400,000 to $500,000 on those buildings. And I am a native Franklinite. 78 years. 78 seems to be the number today. Forever. I can remember when you could come out of the Dunkin' Donuts and turn left. Right? You can't do that today, and that's sad in some cases, but it also brought lots of good people here. If we had built houses instead, let's say a $700,000 house, about the average, it would cost, the taxes would be about $9,000. If they send 2 kids to the schools, it will cost the town $26,000. So I understand. I hate seeing, we've got Woodview Way, we got the one potentially across on Stobert's property, we got one up on Grove Street, the ones by Big Y, the ones across from the Honeydew on East Central Street that you can't turn left out of either. They're profits. Sadly, they're a profit to the town. They don't cost us a lot. Do the police go? Absolutely. Does the fire department go? Absolutely. Usually when the fire department goes, it's a medical, and they charge a lot of money. A lot of money. My guess is it's a net profit on all of them. I hate the traffic. It's nuts. But the reality is, financially, it's not a bad deal. I think that's about what I wanted to say.
Thanks,
Thank you.
George. Ken?
Thanks. I thought Shannon brought up a really good point about the police station. I just wanted to, but I had a point of clarification. I was just trying to understand, or maybe I'm missing. Are we imminent? Are we close to, voting on a new police station or making decisions on that? I felt like
No.
okay. So we don't know the
answer-
amount. We don't know the timing. We don't know anything on
We don't
it
know
yet.
anything.
Okay. So I think that makes sense.
Other than the need for
Other than the fact that we need it. Okay. I if I recall correctly, there's a committee that's kind of looking into all of that, and we.
Just had a meeting the other night.
Okay. I just wanted to clarify that because I just wasn't sure that I had the latest information. Thank you.
If it's okay, I was just going to share a few thoughts since we're here at the center and I've gotten a ton of questions about budget. So I'm Sarah Amaral, I'm the director here at the center, and it would behoove me to thank all of the staff that have made this possible and who made all this food. There's extra, so come get seconds when you're ready. But the biggest question that I keep getting asked, if the town deficit isn't corrected, what would further budget cuts look like at the center? I think from what Jamie has put out, you can kind of see it's all on the table, which includes us. And so even though much is still up in the air, this is what I can share for certain. Last year, we welcomed 525 new members. We ran 4,320 programs. We served 18,659 meals. We provided over 15,000 hours of respite care. We provided 1,141 social services, and volunteers donated 10,160 hours of service in this building. As Councilor Frangillo has shared, we have to fix the structural deficit to keep the services we currently have, which is what I just spoke about. So if cuts come, it would be detrimental to our center. You can see from our expense line items, like you're hearing from a lot of the department heads, there's nothing really left to cut. So the only thing left is going to be staff. And if we lose any staff, you will no longer see the services at the current level that we're talking about. What's really concerning about this for me is what one of our board members mentioned, Bob Kaufman, that there are more older adults living in America now than ever before. If you look at the census data for Franklin alone, 20% of our population is 60 and above, while an additional 19% are 50 through 59. In the next 9 years, the population we serve will almost double in size. So for the senior centers, now's not the time to cut back. Instead, we've gotten as creative as possible. You will see from our budget there's no line item for any of our programs or any of the food that we serve here. We've been able to do this because of our staff, volunteers, grants, and the generosity of our Friends group. The utilization of volunteers and tax work-off volunteers alone saved us over $686,000 more than our requested budget. Our department also runs the tax work-off program that saves an additional $184,000 for other town departments. We are currently 1/3 self-sustaining. Like the town, we also did a deep dive into our 5-year forecast and have asked our Friends group to do the same. Based on our cuts last year, regardless of an override or not, you will see fee increases here. Our hope is that they are minor and the impact minimal. Losing anything, especially staff, will truly need any effort to become more self-sustaining. I think we all aspire to be Ryan Jetty, and while I don't think we can quite get to Mr. Jetty's level, we'll have a hard time aiming at those goals with less staff and resources. The last thing I'd like to do is to dispel some myths that have really upset the senior center community as another override may be coming our way. During the last override, we often heard the seniors voted no because they don't have kids currently in the school system. My staff has had so many conversations with our members who share that they're on a fixed income or their budget is tight, but they received a first-class education in Franklin, so applause to everyone who has made that possible. And as well as their children have received that education, so even if it might be hard, they feel it's their responsibility to give back now. Our seniors love the youth in Franklin. We collaborate with local schools and youth all the time. The Tri-County Medical Assisting students hold monthly educational programs here. Our partnership with the FHS Community Service Club has been instrumental in providing seniors with technology training. 7th grade students from Horace Mann participate in a mentoring program with our seniors. 3rd grade students from Oak Street participate in our opening ceremony for Senior Olympics. You should hear them sing. Benjamin Franklin Charter School students run a gift card drive so we can support seniors in need and homebound seniors at Christmas. Our cafe is filled with FHS volunteers throughout the year. We are fortunate to have the support of so many youth groups like the Lions Heart groups, Brownie, Daisy, Boy Scout troops, and even benefited from an Eagle Scout project. But the one part of the myth is true though. Our seniors do vote. So I'm so thankful that you're all here today to share your thoughts.
Thank you, Sarah.
Hi, I'm Larry Tossi. I've lived here since 1975. And I vote, and I have grandchildren in the school system that I hope they get a good education, and I know how I'm going to vote for them. The senior citizen building here has been so important to everybody. From walking in the morning and have that socialization. I get a little shaky here, so it's nice to go where like everybody knows your name without the alcohol. So it's, I knew I'd throw a joke in there. All right, enough of the jokes. We have wonderful programs here. You know, I know I socialize in the pool room with all the guys and everything, and it's nice every day to go in there and, you know, talk with people instead of staying home all alone. You know, it's you know, we have a wonderful place here, and I volunteer at Sunshine, and we have one of the few programs in the state, I believe. I'm not sure how many there are. I know in Boston, where my sister is, they have nothing like that at all, and they're a big city. So it's we are lucky to what we have here, and that's all I want to say. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, I'm Tom Suri. I live up on Gray Wolf Drive, and we're in a over 55 community. We see the firemen up there. I can't tell you how there aren't too many nights when there's not a fire department up there. I'm also a member of St. Mary's Church, and this year we had an arson. I'm sure everybody here has heard about it. Our church was, it came on quick. The fire department was there so fast, they knocked it down in no time at all. This past weekend, we opened our church up again. We had a rededication mass, the bishop came out. It was absolutely fantastic. We couldn't have done that without the fire department and their response time. And I'll tell you, I just tip my hat to the fire department. The fact that we were able to get back in 4 months is incredible. The damage was one of the rooms was completely destroyed. Had they been 5 minutes later, who knows what we would have experienced, you know. I too work with Larry over in the Sunshine Club. That is a remarkable program. Just, we have a great time with the people, but what the story that isn't told is the families that get supported. Their loved ones are taken care of. They can go about doing the things that they have to do in life. There's just not enough you can talk about that program supports. I have been in this town for 15 years. I came up from Long Island. And I was not aware of any program like this on Long Island. You have a wonderful community here, and you've built it. And it's a lot of money. There's no question about it. But you don't want it. You don't want that, what you've built over all these years, to be torn apart over a few bucks.
Thank you.
Thank you. A lot of you know that I was commander of the American Legion for many years.
Just name and address, please.
Oh, name and address. Don Milo, 60 Fisher Street.
Thanks.
You're welcome. The last couple of years of my wife's life, the fire department really did an excellent job of coming and helping me get from to the car for her appointments and stuff, because her MS was so bad. A lot of times when she fell and I couldn't pick her up because she was too heavy, I would call them, they would come in just minutes. And I want to give them big hats off. And we really need this override. We really do. That's all I.
Hi, I'm Daniela Bush. I live at 21 Tanglewood Drive. I've only been in Franklin about 3 years, and I wanted to tell you all that one of the reasons my family chose to move to this town was because of all the wonderful things we heard about this community from people who had lived here for forever. Almost all of our neighbors are seniors. Their kids have graduated and they're out of the schools, and telling me about what a wonderful public education their kids got in Franklin, about how amazing the library is, about how great the senior center that they all go to every day is. I know I didn't benefit from public education here, but the town I grew up in really believed in it, and I got an amazing education, and I'm so grateful for every minute of that. And my parents, who live in upstate New York and paid taxes for their same services, the same services we're discussing, they go to the senior center every day. And I just think that these resources that we have are so really, really beautiful, and I hope our community continues to support them. I wanted to just bring up the fact, I know we have this 2.5, Proposition 2.5, our taxes go up 2.5% every year. Does anyone know what the average cost of living increase in Massachusetts, or the cost of business increase in Massachusetts has been over even just like the last 10 years? It's definitely more than 2.5%. We will never keep up with services at the rate we have at any point if we are going to only go up 2.5%. Now that doesn't mean I want things to keep going up, but I know I've heard people say that they think that we're in a budget crisis because of mismanagement of funds, and I haven't lived here a long time. What do I know about what's happened before? But I can tell you that even if everything was managed absolutely perfectly, we would still be facing a deficit just based on how much the cost of services and goods and everything, business has gone up. The price of life has increased more than 2.5% in all of our lifetimes, right? And then I wanted to say about the schools, there was a lot of talk about declining school populations. I wonder if anyone could tell us how many kids are in the Franklin public school system right now.
I can. Are you asking me or? Oh, okay.
Yeah.
4,700 students, roughly 46.
So we're
84. I didn't check this morning.
So there are 4,600, 4,700 kids who are being impacted by these decisions that we make every single day. And the things that have been cut, I know Ruth Ann mentioned like the fees that kids are facing to participate in sports, but it's not all extracurricular, right? There have been real budget cuts that have impacted staff and what happens to kids in classrooms right now. I know the reading specialist at my child's elementary school is now split across multiple elementary schools, so she's only there a couple days a week. So that's a real impact on kids and their ability to learn, right? Spanish in the middle school is like once every, I forget, once every 4 days or 5 days. My middle schooler is taking Spanish, but he is not learning Spanish because he doesn't get exposed to it often enough. So we're not talking about just kids being able to participate in the extras, although I actually think those extras are really important. But we're talking about everyday things, about what it means to learn and what we think we want our kids to learn when we make these decisions. And then I guess my last question for us is if we're talking about cuts to things like our fire department and our police department and our ability to staff ambulances, I don't even know, like I wonder, will those cuts even save our town money over time? Like how much do we pay out when we have to pay more overtime for all of the details for construction and everything? How much do we pay out every time we have to call in ambulances from other towns or fire trucks from other towns? So some of the decisions that we might make now might not actually, I wonder if they save us money in the future.
Thank you.
I thank you all.
I think there's one more in the back. Just name and address, please.
Stephen Arnold, 520 Maple Street. I was going to say that if we get qualified firefighters, that will keep the AA rating for the fire and town official services, and it keeps your taxes low. I was going to say the inflation, but here in the coffee shop, the price of eggs, they didn't increase the price for their breakfasts, and you get subsidized breakfast. And I think the senior center is just a wonderful place, and I don't know where we'd be without it.
Thank you, Steve. Is there anyone else that has a question that hasn't had an opportunity to?
I just walked in, but I've been listening to this all at home, so just so everybody knows.
Name and address.
Name and address.
Nadia Mouse off 35 Reed Street. I just want to say I truly appreciate hearing so much advocacy for our senior center and the other departments. It's so important to support this group of the community members who have been a part of this for years and have supported this town for years. I'm sorry, am I being loud enough? But I'm a parent, and I want to speak to another very vulnerable group to this community, who have repeatedly been the receiver of the detriment of an underfunded community for over the past decade. Schools have shut down and are continuing to shut down to accommodate not only a declining enrollment, and I just want to point out the fact that enrollment is no longer declining. It's actually upticking slightly for the next decade, just so everybody understands that. This is necessary, the redistricting, and the closing of schools, because it is advantageous, but it comes with disruption. And that is detrimental for both families and children who also reside in this community, just like all of you here. These families are living through this disruption, which is saving this town $2 million. I just want to repeat that, $2 million. This restructuring is saving this town. In the understanding that this is needed, the needed next step to create a more efficient educational system moving forward. The superintendent, his team, and the school committee have gone above and beyond to ensure that this redistricting is executed in a productive and cost-efficient way, literally building the schools from the ground up. I support him, and I trust staff profusely. And I support the senior center and the police department and every other department in this town equally as much. But the reality is, these departments need this town to support them in this override. parents are not responsible for footing the town deficit alone, and currently at an astronomical cost being placed on them in ways of bus and sports fees and cut educational programming. Please reference page 12 of the memo Mr. Helen put out. It has outlined the additional cuts to the schools representing greater than 50% of the budget deficit. The schools were decimated last year, and I do not say that word lightly. Where do you expect them to come up with another $2 million in cuts? This is in addition to the cuts that were made last year. This equates to humans who are teaching our students, which when cut creates outrageous class sizes, increased class loads, cut counselors, among many other things. This generation is our future. So I personally struggle to understand why this group and our community and these issues are any less important than supporting our other community members in all town departments. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, I don't want to short anybody. Does anybody have a question that they didn't get a chance to ask? No, just wait for the microphone, please. Just name and address. Again.
Karen Landers, Union Street. I support this override. I don't want to live in a two-bit town. But I have a question. Page 7, and all the reductions that you're talking about.
Yes.
Doesn't have any reductions for the senior center. Is that, why is that?
So if you look on page, the chart that I think Nadia just mentioned on page 12, you'll see some estimated numbers. Some of those numbers on there are exact because they're in the budget, like the savings in facilities, $409,000. But if you look at some of the other areas, you know, I just round it out because a lot of times, depending on what staff are reduced, would change that number. Like in a collective bargaining agreement, there might have some sort of provision in there to bump someone or whatever. So I just made in the fire, police, library, and the last one that says various town staff, personnel expenses, reduced town staff $250. That's really an everything's on the table number. I can't exactly pinpoint those folks yet. We're early in the process. I'm still trying to gather feedback for the next couple weeks. But ultimately, depending on what decision the town council or the joint budget subcommittee makes in the next few weeks, you know, as we get closer to the budget filing timeline, I may be able to itemize those cuts out a little bit more. But that's where that would settle, is in that last section right there on that chart.
Okay, thanks.
Thank you. Anyone else? Okay, the last three.
Just like to make a comment.
Just one more time, name and address, please.
Tom Sullivan, Town Line Road. One of the key bullet points in this presentation, or in the memo, is on page 2. The bottom of the page 2. What's going on down in D.C. with Elon and all his friends going after stuff. That's going to have an impact on revenue sharing throughout the states. Okay? And when the state's revenue sharing declines, everything falls down. Have you thought about what that's going to mean and a potential override in future years? So what I'm suggesting, or maybe thinking about, are we underestimating the need today? Do we go a little bit high to prepare for that?
So it's a good question, Tom. So as I point out in the memo, it's something to keep our eye on for the future. The town of Franklin on the municipal side does not see any federal money in its budget. The schools do see a little bit. I've worked with the school business administrator on identifying what rumors we're hearing down in DC. But I think the germane point is that we don't really know what those cuts are going to mean. It may not be governmental subsidies or grants. It could be just cuts to Medicare, Medicaid, other cuts at the federal level, hospitals, for example, are primed to see huge cuts. That will put pressure on the state budget to make up that lost revenue. I think as Governor Healy has said numerous times, I mean, part of this is a wait and see approach. I mean, but I will say in terms of asking the taxpayers for a larger number, that decision is obviously on the Joint Budget Subcommittee and the Town Council. Ultimately, I think as you've heard here today, Tom, and I mean this sincerely to Jane's comments as well as many other in the room, as well as many that aren't being said on camera that we'll talk about in the parking lots and in the hallways. The right decision for the community is trying to not only figure out what you need to fix the foundation or the leaky roof of the house, which is right here in this document, but also balancing that with what is affordable for the community and what is affordable for all residents. That's a very tricky question to answer. I don't think any of us has the exact answer, but I think what we're hearing from a lot of people is a lot of support for preserving these services, but I think we have to also consider what is really affordable for a lot of people who are on a fixed incomes, who aren't going to see those revenues. As illustrated by, I think, Shannon earlier, a couple of other residents, you add these up, and you know it's $600, $700, $800 depending on where you stand. And I think that that's going to be a consideration that the council will have to look at in the next few weeks.
All set, Tom. Rick in the back.
Rick Saccone.
Yeah, it's on.
Saccone, Chestnut Street. It's troubling to me that we have to come together again like this at this time and pit our department heads against one another. Everyone, it's troubling. I've sat through a couple of overrides now. 2008, I worked for the town, and needless to say, the override failed, and cuts were made. We all know that. Going forward, let's just say for the sake of this conversation, this override passes. My words today are to the town administrator and the council that will be over him going forward, whether it's councilors we have now or councilors in the future. We see these shortfalls coming ahead of time. And many of us, or some of us, or a few of us, or maybe just one crazy old man, has asked many times for checks and balances from other departments. And to speak to Mr. Connolly's point in the FinCom, I'm one of those ones who's contacted him many times because I see the Finance Committee as a firewall ahead of the money that gets spent by our community. So I ask our Finance Committee, and I've never been on it, and I've never volunteered, so shame on me. Here I am shooting arrows without never being one of those guys. But we see this coming forward, and I ask to Mr. Helen, our town administrator, you know this is coming. You, more than anyone else in the front of that room, are, in my opinion, apartmentizing our community. We got 1,000 in the pipeline now, and we got many more probably to come, where I see gentlemen, some of them are in our part of our political arena, clearing land and opening up for more apartments to come. And to Mr. Frangillo, who I admire, and he makes great points, we need more of this, but when it's truly affordable, when these are truly affordable, I'll be on board, but I don't see that. I see us continuing to build McMansions and bigger apartments and let's say this. Let's wish this override passes. Excuse me, and we move forward. Let's never have to do this again. Let's be ahead of this somehow. Let's know that we're not going to be. If 2.5 stays in place from now until we're all gone, we know how it's going to have to be. Then we have to be fiscally more prudent. And if it means we can only give the firefighters 1 truck this year instead of 2, and not to shoot at the fire, or that we have to lay, I mean, we all have to share in this load going forward. So I just wish we'd get more ahead of it than behind it, because here we are today and we're behind it. Secondly, to the gentleman's point at the end, I think we are already spending money, are we not, on our new police station plan? I mean, we have designers and planners. I've been to a couple of the meetings. So there is money, I think, and I will be corrected if I'm wrong, that has already been spent going forward to look at our new police station.
We have
Amy, would I be correct in saying that?
No, I will correct my statement. is that we had not gone out to bond.
Yes.
What we've done is hired a project manager.
Which we're paying now.
Correct.
So to the
And an
gentleman's point,
architect.
and that's all, Tom, you don't have to explain it all.
Yeah.
I
Those-
get it.
those two
But we do know we are putting out money
And that
now
money was put
in
aside
plans
by
of
the
the new
council.
police station, to the lady's point. That's all. I've spoken way too much and said way too many things over the years, but please, let's not do this anymore. Let's figure out a way to get ahead of it without overtaxing people who just want to live here till they go, and a lot of them just can't afford to. And it continues to spiral towards that end. And that's why we have seniors coming up against, talking against our firefighters or our police stations. We'd never want to do that. But here we are, we're doing it almost. They're against Sarah and our senior center. We don't want it, we all want everything, but we have to figure out a way how to get fiscally prudent. Thank you.
Thank you, Rick. Was there one more?
Hi, my name is Jean Tall, and I live at 148 Highwood Drive. I have a couple of things. Number one, this is my second home, so I'm here a lot, whether they might wish I wasn't, but I am. I am a member, or I'm participating in the senior tax write-off. I run a class here once a month. Fire department are my friends. I have had them a few times come. One time here last spring, a very spectacular fall. I fought the rug and the rug won. I had a couple of things. I'm the oldest of 7 kids. I grew up in Framingham. I've only lived in Franklin for about 40 years, so I'm a carpetbagger. But I'm getting to feel more and more like I'm living in Framingham when I was growing up. And I don't really want us to end up there, much as I loved it. The other point says that in 12 years, from first grade through high school, I went to public schools for only 5 years. All my siblings did go to public schools, and I have no kids in the schools. I have no kids anywhere, but most of my family did go to public schools, so I pretty much support overrides. But the question I end up having is that I attended the meeting last year when you came up with the $1+ million to kind of plug the hole for the time being. My understanding at that time was that you were going to use this year to come up with some kind of a plan to really work on this so that we would begin to get a handle on things. I have not heard anything about whether that plan was held. I did listen to a school committee meeting shortly after that decision was made. And although at the meeting it was made very clear that this was one-time only infusion of money and was not to be used for salaries or ongoing expenses, at the school committee meeting that I listened to was talking about how they were going to hire this person or that person or do this, none of which seemed to me to be one-time only expenses. So in all of this material here, is there somewhere I could find some kind of consensus, or what kind of a plan maybe you were able to develop that, like I said, you were using the money one time just to try to give yourselves time to do that?
Sure. Just before I give it to Lucas and Jamie, the $1 million that Jean's talking about was money that we took after the override failed. We took that money from the stabilization account and moved it to the schools, knowing that it was a one-time thing. And we committed to the community that we would put that $1 million back into the stabilization account, which we did at our last council meeting. So that money has been replaced into the stabilization account to help us and continue to keep the most important piece of the finance community for the town of Franklin, which is a AAA bond rating. AAA is something you always want to hear as far as we're concerned. The AAA bond rating allows us to borrow at a very reduced rate. So with that, Jamie.
Just through you, Mr. I guess, you know, Gene, to your couple of your points, just as a reminder for the public, we actually used a little bit over $3 million in this year's fiscal budget of one-time money. So the fact that we're in a deficit of 3.8, actually, relatively speaking, is fairly in a good position. If you look at any community within Eastern Massachusetts, they are having the same type of budget difficulties from Natick to Easton to Norton to Mansfield's asking for an override this year. That was just in the newspaper this day. You know, there was almost 110 of these questions in Eastern Massachusetts last year. You know, some of these costs are out of our control. I would note that the Mass Association of School Superintendents, the Mass Association of School Committees, and the Massachusetts Association of School Business Managers all sent out a letter last weekend unanimously making sure that the state of Massachusetts and residents and parents were clear about the cost drivers that are facing it. I don't think I have to tell anybody in this room the last 5 years have disrupted every single corner of the planet. And to be in a position where we have a deficit this size actually is a testament to, I think, the leadership on the council and the school committee, Lucas and myself and our staff, to try to manage costs while still maintaining the same staffing levels that we had. I just want to note that, you know, to be in a position where $3 million in one-time money was used this year, we knew a year and a half ago this deficit was going to be here this year. We knew last summer that this deficit after the failed override was going to be here. And, you know, to a lot of the questions that came out earlier, I do want to note that not only have we managed the budgets, you know, fairly well, giving all the competing interests and collective bargaining with our 8 major unions, healthcare across Massachusetts is easily at a 15% increase in the private and public sector. When you're looking at inflation and supply chain problems, those still exist for our expenses at our DPW and our facilities and all of our departments. Just like somebody had mentioned earlier, and I don't remember who it was, you know, said, you know, what has been the cost of inflation on the business community? Well, they just jack up the price of products and you end up paying more. I pay more, we all pay more. You know, and I think given the situation, when you look at factors like the town of Natick has 39 employees at their public library, we have 12, but yet we still produce one of the best libraries in Massachusetts. You know, I think does speak to a lot of the efficiencies and cost increases that we really do manage quite well. And the last thing I'll say is, you know, obviously, you know, over time, we've litigated in public many, many times for really well past when I was here about the growth in this town in the 90s and early 2000s. The modulars that were on the school facilities were all there. They couldn't build buildings fast enough to house our children. Now we've hit a nice plateau, and to somebody's comment earlier, you know, the enrollment seems to be very, very stable at the school district. I give a tremendous amount of credit as somebody who has tried to be the best I can to hold everybody, not just my departments, but also hold the schools accountable. I will note they have risen to the occasion in the last year and a half. Redistricting is by far one of the hardest things you will ever do at the local level. And my team on my staff, all of the planners, Brian Taberner, our facilities department, Kevin and Mike, all of our custodial staff, everybody throughout the entire organization, our engineers at the DPW, have assisted the superintendent and the school committee. You can't find greater collaboration in the state of Massachusetts between a school district and a town like we have it. You will just not find it. And to Jay's comment earlier about the MTA president, I guarantee you that is not about me. That is about the team that we have built. And I know that a lot of people are very envious of us across the Commonwealth in looking at the fact that the superintendent's office is right next to mine and mine is right next to his. We see each other in the cafeteria. We bump into each other in the hallways, in the parking lot. We share notes. We work very, very well together. For him to come in to a budget discussion like this and to be able to save $2 million in structural costs just in his account, but also $500,000 or more in the municipal accounts, is really, really tremendous progress toward meeting, I think, a lot of expectations in the community of trying to deal with our spending, trying to manage spending, bring those costs down, make sure we're the most efficient organization we can. We want to make sure we portray to the community that the last resort we can possibly think of is asking for a property tax increase on an override. And so I think we have done, and the schools have done the best that they can to do that. We've tried to do that on our side as well. Unfortunately, Gene, to just wrap up in full circle to your point, you know, the costs of everything we're doing, fuel, everything that we have in our municipal budget, staff and benefits, for example, for the school and town combined, is almost 3/4 of the entire budget, is personnel and benefits. Almost 3/4 of the entire town allocation goes to staff and benefits. That is an enormously high number. And so when we look at cuts, we have to plow the roads, we have to, snow and ice, we have to do certain things that are not personnel related, but 3/4 of our budget is staff and benefits. And at the end of the day, that's why you see these results come out, that when you see layoffs, it's because most of the budget is staff and benefits. So I hope that addresses some of your questions, Gene.
To your point, I just want to add one thing, and that's a quote. Paraphrase, I'm not sure it's matched. Word for word quote. Hopefully there are enough people in here who remember Edward Dirksen, senator from somewhere in the Midwest.
Illinois.
And he was quoted, I think, as saying, $1 million here, $1 million there. Before you know it, you're talking about real money.
Thank you, Gene. Okay, I think we'll close this out. We've been here 2.5 hours. I want to first thank everyone for coming out and listening, asking your questions, expressing your concerns, and helping this group, the Joint Budget Subcommittee, as we progress towards trying to find the funding for our current structural deficit. I'd like to thank the Senior Center and their staff for putting on a great refreshments for us and allowing us to come in and use their building. I would be remiss if I didn't thank the Joint Budget Subcommittee, as well as the school department, school administration, the town administration, and all the town department heads who have come together to help us go through the budget process as we have this year, since September 11th, and the schools for moving their whole budget process up a month and a half to allow us to have these listening sessions with realistic numbers. And they have fluctuated a little, but we've said from day one that they would as we progressed. This is the 4th of 6 listening sessions. We have 2 left. Saturday at the Town Council Chambers, we'll have a listening session from 10 to 12. That one you'll be able to zoom into and speak on Zoom. The last one is Wednesday night, the 12th, at Franklin High School, and that's at 7 o'clock. And at the conclusion of that listening session, it may not be quite as long a listening session as we've already had 5. That we'll have already had 5. That will be the 6th. At the end of that meeting, this Joint Budget Subcommittee will vote on a recommendation to send to the Town Council. And again, and that recommendation will be whether to put an override question to the residents, how much that question should be, and when. And that recommendation then will go to the Town Council on March 19th. And on March 19th, the Town Council, who is the ultimate authority as to if a ballot question gets put on and for how much and when, that decision will be made on March 19th. So that's the process as we move forward. Please stay tuned, stay involved. Please come to our meetings, and thank Franklin TV for putting all of these sessions on TV. They've all been on live, and we appreciate that. And shown on repeat on Comcast Channel 9 and Verizon Channel 29. I wish I had a dime for every time I had to say that. Okay, with that, I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
Second.
Non-debatable. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carries.